Once upon a time, scientists wanted to learn how to train Siberian Huskies, those special dogs that race in sled competitions. They did a big study where they watched how these dogs' bodies reacted when they ran different kinds of races. They found out some very interesting things about what happens inside a dog's body during exercise. 5 Siberian Huskies took part in a special study to see how their bodies react to different types of exercise. They had their blood tested before and a few minutes after running in 3 different ways: a 7.5 kilometers run, a 6 kilometers team sled run, and a quick 90-second sprint. The scientists checked things like heart rate right after each run, as well as lots of other measurements in the blood to see how their bodies responded. The dogs' heart rates were about 190 beats per minute after the sprint, 211 beats after the long run, and 166 beats after the sled run. The scientists also looked at the levels of certain chemicals in the blood, called lactate, which help show how hard the body is working. They found that some chemicals increased more after the sled run. Afterwards, 3 of the dogs went through a special 12-week training program to see if they would get better at exercising, while the other 3 dogs didn't train and served as a comparison. They all did treadmill exercises before and after the training, and their blood, temperature, and heart rates were measured during the tests. The results showed that the dogs' heart rates, body temperature, and chemicals in the blood reacted to exercise in similar ways before and after training. This suggests that a longer or more intense training program might be needed to see bigger changes in how their bodies respond to exercise. Have you ever seen a dog pulling a sled across the snow? In places like North America and Europe, lots of people love sled dog racing. In this exciting sport, teams of 3 to 20 dogs race over long distances, sometimes as far as 75 kilometers. The races can be very short, like 10 minutes, or super long, lasting up to 3 hours. The racing season usually starts in mid-December and lasts until mid-March. Before the race season begins, the dogs start training in September when it's cooler outside. They practice running long distances to prepare for the big races. While trainers focus on how far the dogs run, scientists also want to learn how training affects the dogs' bodies. They can do this by checking their heart rates and taking blood tests. These tests look at things like lactate, a chemical in the blood that shows how hard the muscles are working. This helps scientists see if the dogs are getting stronger and better at using energy. Scientists also measure other things in the blood, like hemoglobin, which carries oxygen to the muscles. They look at blood cell counts and special enzymes to make sure the dogs stay healthy during the racing season. If these measurements change a lot, it might mean the dogs are tired or overworked. Some enzymes, like CPK and LDH, tell us about muscle health, while others like SGPT can show if the liver is okay. Sometimes, training can keep these enzymes at normal levels so the dogs stay strong and healthy. This study wanted to do 2 main things. First, to see how blood chemicals and health markers in Siberian Huskies change with different kinds of exercise, and second, to find out how a special 12-week training program impacts their bodies during exercise. The goal is to help dogs stay happy, healthy, and ready for their next big race. In this study, scientists wanted to see how dogs' bodies react during exercise. First, they took 5 Siberian Huskies, 3 boys and 2 girls, who were between 1 and 7 years old and weighed about 20.5 to 27.3 kilograms. The dogs did different activities before their racing season started. During the study, they stayed active and ate the same yummy food called Performance, made by Hill's Pet Products. The dogs ran 4 different ways: a quick 7.5 kilometers run, a 6 kilometers sled pulling race, and a super fast 90-second sprint. Before and after each run, the scientists took small samples of blood from the dogs' veins. These samples showed how much of certain chemicals, their body signals, were in their blood, like LDH, CPK, SGPT, hemoglobin, hematocrit, and blood cell counts. Just 3 minutes after each run, they took more blood to see how much lactate was in the blood, which tells us how hard the muscles are working. After each activity, they checked the dogs' heartbeats by feeling their pulse on their legs. In the second part of the study, the scientists wanted to see if exercise training really helps dogs get even better. They picked 3 of the same dogs from before, all males ages 1.5 to 5 years, and gave them a special 12-week workout plan. These dogs were in the interval training group. The other 3 dogs, called the light exercise group, only did light exercise and sometimes ran slowly, so they served as a comparison. All 6 dogs ate the same healthy food as before, Before starting, all the dogs practiced running on a treadmill, a special running machine, several times. The tests were done in the evening so everything stayed the same each time. The dogs rested and hadn't eaten for about 8 hours before testing. The scientists measured their heart rates using a special monitor and checked their body temperature by recording it in their rectums. First, they warmed up the dogs by running gently for 3 minutes at a speed of 6 kilometers per hour. Then, they increased the speed to 7.5 and 10.5 kilometers per hour for 2 4-minute stages. Near the end, they tilted the treadmill up to make the dogs work harder for 4 minutes. During all this, the scientists kept track of their heartbeats and body temperature. After the exercise, they took another blood sample after 3 minutes to see how much lactate and other chemicals were in the blood. The dogs in the training group did their special 12-week workout. In the first 4 weeks, they trained twice a week with interval runs, running fast for 4 to 8 minutes, then resting briefly, and repeating. They also ran longer distances of 9 kilometers and 6 kilometers twice each week. The total exercise time in each session went from about 24 to 36 minutes. In the last 8 weeks, they trained 3 times a week with the same kind of interval runs and did continuous runs of 9 kilometers and 6 kilometers twice a week. The scientists then used special tests to see if the training changed anything in the dogs' bodies and to compare their results. They checked the blood tests taken before and after exercise carefully to find out what was different and what stayed the same. When the dogs finished running, their hearts were beating super fast. On average, their heartbeats were about 190 times per minute after a quick 90-second sprint, about 211 times after running 7.5 kilometers, and about 166 times after pulling a sled for 6 kilometers. Scientists also checked a special chemical in the blood called lactate, which shows how hard the muscles are working. After the sprint, the lactate was 1.74, after the long run it was 0.70, and after the sled pull it was 3.06 moles per liter. Before they started running, all the blood levels, like hemoglobin, which carries oxygen, and hematocrit, how much blood is made of red blood cells, were normal. After running, hemoglobin went up by about 7.6% after the long run, and by about 13.7% after pulling the sled. The other blood parts, like red blood cells, also increased a little. The scientists looked at enzymes called LDH and CPK, which show muscle activity, and saw that these increased less after the quick sprint than after the longer runs. The enzymes were much higher after pulling the sled than after the 7.5 kilometers run. Interestingly, one enzyme called SGPT actually went down after both long and short exercises. Later, the scientists did more tests using a treadmill, which is a special running machine. They checked how fast the dogs' hearts beat and their body temperatures at different parts of the exercise. Both groups of dogs had similar heart rates before and after the training. But, strangely, at the beginning of the treadmill test, the heart rates went up more after the dogs had trained than before. The scientists thought that was curious and will study it more. The dogs' body temperatures didn't change much, but the dogs that exercised a lot regularly, called the interval training group, had lower body temperatures at some points during the test compared to the other group, called the light exercise group. This was true both before and after training. After exercise, the lactate levels in the blood didn't change much, but the IT dogs had lower levels overall. About 0.57 moles per liter before training and 0.97 moles after. The La dogs had higher levels, around 1.50 moles before and 1.10 moles after. Finally, they checked some blood tests when the dogs were resting. The La group had higher levels of hemoglobin, hematocrit, and red blood cells before they started training. During the study, there weren't big changes in these measurements or in white blood cells. Also, the enzymes called SGPT and SGOT were lower in the IT dogs at rest and after exercise, which might mean their organs were under less stress. But during the study, these enzyme levels went up a little, especially SGOT after exercise, which increased a lot. This study helps us learn how to best train Siberian Huskies, which are special dogs used in sled races. First, scientists watched how the dogs reacted when they ran different ways. They found that running a 6-kilometer sled race, a super fast 90-second sprint, and running for 7.5 kilometers all made the dogs' hearts beat faster, but not at their fastest speed. Sometimes, their hearts weren't beating as fast as they do during real races. The scientists also checked a chemical in the blood called lactate, which shows how hard the muscles are working. The levels were low after all these exercises, which tells us the dogs mostly used oxygen to create energy, no quick bursts needed. The scientists also looked at special enzymes called LDH and CPK that go up when muscles work really hard. These enzymes increased more after the sled race than after the shorter runs. That shows racing really uses a lot of energy and makes the muscles tired. Next, they gave the dogs a 12-week training plan to see if it made a difference. They found that some things didn't change much, like their body temperature and blood lactate levels. But the dogs that trained more often, called the interval training group, had lower body temperatures during exercise. That might mean their bodies learned how to stay cooler. These dogs also had lower blood lactate levels, which shows they got better at using oxygen during exercise. Before they started training, the dogs in the light exercise group had higher amounts of hemoglobin, hematocrit, and red blood cells, which could mean they were more rested or less tired. The scientists also checked some enzymes called SGOT and SGPT that can show if muscles or organs get tired or damaged. These enzymes went up after training, but the trained dogs had lower levels than the less trained dogs. That might mean more training helps protect the body from damage during intense activity. Overall, the study shows that with good training, dogs can become stronger, stay cooler, and be healthier for racing. The scientists discovered that running a short sprint, a long run, and pulling a sled all made the dogs' hearts beat faster, but not to their maximum speed. Their bodies mainly used oxygen to produce energy, which is good because it means the dogs are strong and healthy. When the dogs raced very hard, some chemicals in their blood called enzymes went up, especially after pulling the sled, showing that it used a lot of energy and muscles. They also learned that training the dogs longer and more often might help them stay cooler and use oxygen even better during races. Interestingly, the dogs that trained more had lower body temperatures and lactate levels, which could mean they're better at handling exercise and less likely to get tired or hurt. This shows us that training and exercise are very important for racing dogs. Just like people, dogs need the right kind of practice to stay healthy and strong. It also reminds us that understanding what happens inside the body can help dog trainers make better plans so their dogs can race faster, stay safe, and have fun doing what they love. So, the next time you see a sled dog racing across the snow, remember, scientists and trainers are always working to learn more about how to help these special dogs stay happy and healthy. With the right training, these amazing dogs can keep running and pulling sleds for many more adventures to come.